They've sent me here to make energy utilities exciting in the morning. What do you think? So what I'm going to do is be as provocative as I can. I'm going to give you a quick global tour with touchdowns in Beijing, Delhi, New York, maybe even Reno. We'll talk about that in a minute. And I'm going to give you a chance at the end to ask any questions that you want with a focus on how to become that 21st century utility. So without further ado, and I'm going to be talking about 4 of the inflection points that you and your utilities need to be aware of to stay ahead of the tide. The first inflection point is for the first time in 50 years, the largest buying cohort in the world has changed from baby boomers, like me, who wanted the biggest TV possible, the biggest car, the biggest house, and then we'd throw it out and buy yet a bigger one. Millennials are completely different. What they're looking for are 3 things. 1, how to reduce the carbon footprint in everything they do. 2, how to have complete connectivity every moment of their life. And 3, how to have community in every aspect of their life. And if you're in the utility industry, you need to understand you have the power to give the millennial users, the largest buying cohort in the world, those 3 things better than anyone else. So remember, as a utility, you need to be the millennials' best friend. The second inflection point, the big issue of the day, it's coming up in every election, it's coming up throughout in every part of the economy, is this whole global warming, global pollution issue. And it's coming just a bit faster than people realize. I just spoke a few years ago at the Googleplex in Beijing. And on the front page of the paper, the South China Post that day, it said that living in Beijing was the equivalent of smoking 52 cigarettes a day. So if you have a child, that child is born from day one with a 2.5-pack cigarette addiction. Harvard Health Project predicts 83 million people will die of lung-related diseases in China over the next 25 years. We'll come back to why that's important. But China has already been passed by India, which is now the world's largest global polluter. 13 of the 20 most polluted cities on the planet in this one country. And the implications to this are many. First, over 20% of the particulate matter, the pollution over the west coast of the United States now comes from Asia. We're getting cleaner, they're getting dirtier. But the real implication for every one of you is, as a company, you do not want to be the last utility turning off its coal power plants. The issues here are disproportionately spread out over the oil industry and the utility industry. You want to be wearing the white hat for millennial buyers. The next inflection point is this issue of energy, your core, your strong suit. Now, most people still think we're in the carbon stage. And I'm here to tell you that is receding quickly in the rearview mirror. By the way, I just gave a similar speech in Dallas predicting the end of the oil industry. I thought I would be charged at the stage, and instead, 52 people stood in line to give me their card to get the presentation. By the way, you don't need to take any notes or pictures. Anybody who wants a copy of this presentation, give me your card afterwards. I will send it to you tomorrow. But here's what I want you to know. We're not only rapidly moving out of this phase, we're moving through this into the next big thing, which is the new economy. Big data, IoT, the sharing economy. This is where you need to be playing. You think of yourselves as an energy company today, very soon you're going to be an energy IoT company. So here's a trivia question for you. You're going to know this because you're in the energy industry. How many years will it be before we've moved from this first box into the future where the majority of power that goes on globally every year, India, Africa, for the whole planet, how long do we have to wait before the majority of new power added every year is no longer fossil fuel, it is renewable? 0? Other guesses? 10 years? Great. Other guesses? Okay. You're smarter than most. Most people think 10, 20 years. Here's the answer. It happened 6 years ago. The oil industry wants to tell you differently. Take a look. By next year, twice as much energy that goes on globally, worldwide, is renewable. By 2030, it'll be 4-to-1 ratio. A lot of this has to do because of the extreme pressure being put on utilities in places like China and India to move into this new future more quickly. Leaders like Xi Jinping have no choice. Take a look at this slide. This is the third inflection point. This explains exactly why. Take a mental picture of this. On the top, you will see today, the blue line is the cost of solar, the red line, the cost of wind. As we get into 2019, which would be off the chart, every part of the continental 48 states, it is cheaper today to put solar in place than coal or oil. The missing piece has been what? Storage, exactly. And that's why you need to see the slide below together in concert. Leif was talking about Tesla. Ponder this. Most of my life, the cost per kilowatt hour, it's the green bar on the left, was $2,000 a kilowatt hour. There was no cost-effective storage. It made no sense as much as I might have wanted it and my liberal California brethren. By 2010, down to $1,000 a kilowatt. I was serving on the board of Tesla Motors then. We were one of the largest early investors. And at $1,000 a kilowatt, we could make a 5-seater family car faster than virtually any Porsche, the safest car ever tested by NHTSA, and car of the year. Extraordinary. By the way, with an equivalent of 97 miles per gallon. But it was a plaything of the rich at $100,000. So fast forward, and you can see how it's going down to become readily affordable by the broader public. But then something happened in 2017 and 18 that no one predicted. What happened right here? What caused this? Who knows? The Gigafactory. Go to the top of the class. This thing built 20 miles west of Reno, California, the largest building in North America, bigger than the Pentagon or the Boeing manufacturing facility, creating a global glut on the market, driving the cost down to extraordinary levels. How much? Let's talk about this in concert with solar. First, I actually have to tell you, I used to work at the Department of Energy and Conservation and Solar. And way back then, the cost per watt hour, $77. It made no sense. Heartbreaking, but it made no sense. You can follow the cost curve down because this is the energy inflection point that I talked about. And as we got to 2007, this is the year we founded our venture firm. We said, we think solar is going to suddenly pick up because at about $5 a watt, there's going to be a market. And people saw what we were predicting, and they said, you've lost your mind. Look backwards. That's how you predict the future. But look at that line. We thought it seemed doable. So here's what really happened. And then that. And it's continued to go up. And what I want to leave you with is if you're trying to see the future, don't look backward. Look for the inflection point. That's the energy inflection point. Here is the next inflection point, power storage and electric vehicles. Take a look. You can see how quickly the cost has come down from $1,000 a kilowatt hour to $200 a kilowatt hour. What does that mean for electric vehicles? All the time when I speak, especially in the Midwest or the South, people say, I don't see that many electric vehicles. How many of these things are being sold? I have the answer. This is just Tesla, but it's the last 6 years, 24 data points, quarterly reporting. And you can take a look here and say, well, gee whiz, that's a clear curve. I see where that's going. But do you? Because that's what Q3 and Q4 look like. Q1 is even higher. And if you're wondering how that stacks up in the United States, Tesla, in terms of unit sales, is number 5 already. The Tesla Model 3, ahead of every American car and only trailing the Honda Accord, Honda Civic, and so on. Unless you care about revenue, because then the Tesla Model 3 is the number 1 selling revenue car in the United States today, as well as Norway, Switzerland, and more European countries all the time. And I'm here to tell you, as the cost per kilowatt hour goes down, every automaker on the world is already moving all electric. We know this because our investors at our venture fund are 12 of the world's largest utilities and auto companies. The whole world is going to an electric grid infrastructure. If you're a utility, pinch yourself. This is the best thing that could be happening, but only if you're smart enough to take advantage of it. By the way, I loved Leif's presentation. You should know, because a lot of people say, it's not going to be electric, that the cars aren't going to go all electric. What, have you lost your mind? The great nation of Norway already said 100% you will not be allowed, it will be against the law to sell internal combustion vehicles by 2025. But no one cares about Norwegians. I'm Norwegian. The country's too small. It doesn't have an impact. In 2017, France, UK, and India came on board, saying no internal combustion vehicle sold after 2030 or 2040. Those are big economies. 2018, the list is bigger. 2019, I can't even fit it on anymore. But the big driver is China. And I'm here to tell you right now, I believe within 24 months, Xi Jinping will ban the sale of internal combustion vehicles. They already produce over half of the electric vehicles in the world today. This is their chance to jump over their Western counterparts, and they're on it. So let me just move quickly here. For the utilities, like most big companies, you've worn the black hat. You're big, you're impersonal, you're distant, your primary interaction is sending the bills. Who likes that? We need to get smart about wearing the white hat, about finding ways to appeal to that millennial customer. And what I want to suggest to you is that you should take a lesson from a guy who I know pretty well. He served on the board with me at Tesla. And he has a classic story you've heard before, grew up in the projects, went to college on a football scholarship, then got injured, and it looked like his life was just over. But he decided to go into the coffee business, and he did okay. His name's Howard Schultz. And I want you to take a chapter out of his book, because traditional utilities are in the old coffee business, limited choices, poor customer experience, no customer engagement to speak of. You need to jump in to the Starbucks world. You need to ask yourselves, are we giving enough choices? Is it a great customer experience? Are we building community? And that is what the 21st century utility will do. I'm going to blow through these slides quickly. If you want the presentation, I shall give it to you. But I'm here to tell you, today, utilities sell one thing: electrons, electric utilities. In the future, you will need a 21st century utility. For residential customers, it will look more or less like this, and these are companies we at our firm felt were the leaders in those spaces. You have large commercial companies. You're going to need a new menu for those customers that looks quite different. Each one of these creating a new revenue opportunity for your utility. And by the way, here's a menu you didn't expect. I expect you to have your own mobility menu, because in an age of all electric transportation, you are the electric utility. This is your biggest opportunity. So every one of you should be looking for new monetization opportunities. Every one of you should be helping the millennial and your other customers make that leap into the age of electric vehicles and power storage in the home. You should be helping give them the choice and providing turnkey home IoT offerings before Amazon, Apple, and Google do the same. And you should be creating new ways to provide community for your users. So what I want to leave you with is not only a story of the new customer, the new global issues facing you, the new revolution in renewable energy and electric vehicles, that the new mantra is quite different from what I heard growing up, which is, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's gone. The new mantra is, if you don't cannibalize it, someone else will. So I just want to leave you with this. It's my favorite picture. 1900, New York City, Fifth Avenue, Easter Day parade, 5 days from now. If you look here, It's all horses and buggies. And there's one poor person on the left driving a car. And it went about 3 miles an hour, belching smoke, nowhere to refuel it, and everybody thought, who is this wingnut? Not happening. 13 years later, same city, same street, same day, Easter Day parade. There's not a car in sight. It's changed overnight, except for one. It's always one guy, the horse and buggy still, not gonna happen. Don't let that be your utility. And I just wanna challenge you and ask if you can go from this, a world of horses and buggies in 1900, to this world in 1913, how quickly do you think it will change to go to a world of renewable energy, of electric and soon autonomous vehicles? This is the biggest opportunity in the future. I hope I have challenged you to become that 21st century utility. Thank you. They have told me that I can do a few questions. If you'd like, throw anything at me you want, from stock tips on Tesla to what it was like working. I used to be the chief financial officer of the state of California, what it was like to work for an Austrian bodybuilder governor. Anything you want's fair game, or the energy revolution. Please, questions. Sir.
People who can't afford to buy Teslas and can't afford to put solar on their roof and can't afford to put three or four power walls so it can last overnight, what are the vast majority of low-income people supposed to do?
This is my favorite question. I want to make sure everybody heard it. What about the rest of us? What about poor people? These things are expensive. That is the entire point of my presentation, because I love this stuff. Back in 1978, when I worked for Jimmy Carter, and no one could afford it. And that's why I've dedicated my life to bringing these things to the public. That is the point. Solar, as progressive as I am, just didn't plain make sense for the rest of us until 5 or 6 years ago. Tesla at $100,000 made no sense except for the 1%. Today, now, it is the #1 selling car in the country at about $40,000 for the low price. But I'm here to tell you, Volkswagen's putting out an all-electric vehicle that'll be at $22,000, and for the rest of our lives, electric vehicles will be cheaper than internal combustion vehicles. So if you're a lower income person, this is the best news ever. On top of that, most people, including my 17-year-old and 19-year-old kid, aren't gonna be driving, they're going to be doing ride-hailing. Ponder this, Mary Barra has said, Uber has done something never done in human history. They've dropped the cost of delivering people and goods from point A to point B to $2.50 a mile. That's the holy grail today. But Mary Barra went on to say, our holy grail at General Motors is to drop it to $1.50. And we're going to do that by removing the driver from the equation. So there's implications for people who have driver as an occupation, but in terms of cost coming down and access to the poor, it's getting more accessible all the time. And as I showed you at the solar slide, give me your card and I will send it to you, the cost of energy will be coming down. There's a large utility effort now called the Free Electron Group. And their basic premise is the cost of shipping electrons is going towards zero. 1 or 2 more questions. Sir.
Hi, Steve. Rick Nicholson with ABB.
Great.
As full disclosure, ABB does invest in Steve's fund. So Shell has announced that they want to be the largest power company in the world. They've formed the New Energies division. They're on a tear. They're buying up companies like Sonnen. Should utilities be shaking in their boots?
So utilities should be shaking in their boots, but not because of Shell. Shell has one of the worst brands in the world because they have not tended to it very carefully. We're moving into a millennial world. They need a massive work to make themselves a millennial-friendly company. 2, Shell historically has not pivoted very quickly. They were smart to move on, I think, green lots and on Sonnen and other things. But the people you should be worrying about are the people who move fastest. And I know the old thinking is, hey, we're in the energy company, we'll worry about whoever the biggest energy company is. GM, the Kodaks. I would submit to you, your biggest worry is fast-moving companies like the Googles and Amazons that want to come into your household and get in between you and your customer. Remember, you offer the 3 things millennial users want: a smaller carbon footprint, connectivity if you offer them the right IoT devices, and you can offer them community. But you need to do the things we mentioned in the slide. So it's really a race of who moves quickest, and my bet would probably not be on Shell. But I don't discount them either. Those folks have a lot of money, they're playing for keeps, and they know they're threatened. 1 or 2 more questions.
Yeah, I'm wondering what your advice to utilities is specifically on distributed energy solutions like solar and storage.
So the short answer is, it is coming. People want it. You look, if you're IBM, you could sit in the corner and say mainframes forever. By the way, I've got to tell you the story. I just had lunch with the head of IBM a while ago, and I came back and I told my kids, and I said, I just had lunch with the head of the largest technology company in the world. It was about 10 years ago. And they said, Google, Apple, Yahoo, never heard of IBM. Don't be that company. So your users will be leaving for solar. They will have distributed grid. They will have large power storage opportunities. Homes, increasingly, this power wall that the woman here is concerned about is being too expensive. Absolutely true. I'm here to tell you the bottom is falling out of that product. So what you need to do is realize you need to go beyond just selling electrons and get actively into the space we talked about with this new 21st century menu. Let me do 1 more question. There's a gentleman here, and then I promise to keep everybody on time, and we're right there.
Hi,
Sir.
Steve. Great discussion. I'm going to try to get your presentation. So you just said, yeah, customers want it, but what do you see as the single biggest barrier to distributed energy resources really exploding in the U.S.?
So I think it's a combination of 3 things. 1, cost has to come down. 2, you have to change the mindset that it's doable. And it's just like massive scale solar or electric vehicles. Once people see the leaders doing it, it takes off. But people just don't understand it. They need to be made comfortable with it. What I would urge the utilities to be doing is to be leaders. Be a leader in providing this new 21st century menu. Be a leader in terms of being the most millennial utility that anyone has ever seen, and be a leader in terms of going out of your sweet spot. You know, we talk a lot with our utility partners like ABB and Energy, who I know is here, and E.ON. Be progressive and go beyond just energy. This opportunity with EVs, I think, is the biggest one in the world. But I just want to come back to this last point. I used to work at this company called eBay. By the way, I told my parents one day I had this prestigious job teaching on the faculty at Stanford's Graduate School of Business. My parents were so proud. And I came home one day and I said, hey, I've seen the future. Online flea markets. And my parents said, no, go get your job back. Tell them you were kidding. The reason eBay became such a phenomenal success, it's not that we sold a lot of stuff back and forth. It's that we learned how to create communities, and our site became the stickiest thing on the internet. Today, your users as utilities think about you once a month when they get a bill, and it's not always a positive experience. Smart utilities, like China Light and Power, another one of our investors, is doing extraordinary things to provide community for their users, to get people coming to their site not just once a week, or even once a day, but 4 or 5 times a day. Why? Because they offer them this future of low-cost items, EVs, pricing plans, solar panels. There's a range of things you can be doing. The global battle used to be, say, for mind share. Now it is for community. Don't let Amazon, Google, or Shell beat you to the punch. Shell I don't worry about, but the other firms are loaded for bear. Thank you very, very much.